Tonight we have a deep dive into a betrayal so massive, so calculated, and so dangerous that it should send a chill down the spine of every freedom-loving citizen in North America. Do you see what is happening to our neighbors to the North Canada, once a bastion of Western liberty, is being transformed right before our eyes into a radical, woke, state-controlled surveillance machine? And leading the charge is a man who was supposed to be the adult in the room, Prime Minister Mark Carney. But instead of standing up for Canadians, he has decided to get on his knees for the Chinese Communist Party. Listen to me closely, because the media mob in Ottawa and the radical leftists in Washington won't tell you this. Canada's top security threat has officially become their secret security partner. Just last month, in January 2026, Mark Carney flew to Beijing for a 4-day strategic visit. He didn't just go for a photo op. He signed a series of secretive memorandums of understanding MoUs that are now being hidden from the Canadian people. We're talking about cooperation on matters of security and intelligence with a regime that only a year ago was rightfully labeled Canada's greatest security threat. Think about that. 1 year, they are the enemy. The next year, they are the security partner. It's a total reversal. It's disgusting. And frankly, it's a national security nightmare for the United States. But it's not just the foreign betrayal. It's the war on you, the citizen at home. While Carney is making deals with Chairman Xi in Beijing, he is simultaneously launching a full-scale assault on free speech in Canada. They are reviving the Online Harms Act, a draconian piece of legislation that, combined with the Online News Act and the Combating Hate Act, effectively turns Canada into a digital police state. If you say something they don't like, if you question the narrative, if you dare to criticize the regime's net zero insanity, they want the power to silence you, fine you, and maybe even put you under house arrest before you even commit a speech crime. Do you see the pattern? They manufacture a crisis, climate change, online hate, or whatever boogeyman they can dream up, and then they use that crisis to justify policies that strip away your rights and empty your wallet. Look at the record. Under this Liberal government, food inflation is projected to hit record highs again in 2026, with families expected to pay nearly $1.000 more just to put food on the table. Grocery prices are up over 22% since 2022. Rent has doubled. Mortgages have doubled. And what does Carney do? He spends over $10 billion on a failing EV battery industry and then invites 49,000 Chinese electric vehicles to flood the market and destroy what's left of the Canadian auto sector. The media mob won't show you the insults thrown in the House of Commons or the families who can no longer afford the basics. They want you hyper-fixated on their latest ideological crusade while they sell out the country's sovereignty. They blame Harper, they blame the unvaxxed, and now, in their most desperate move yet, they are blaming Donald Trump for all of Canada's problems. But the truth is, the threat isn't coming from Mar-a-Lago. It's coming from the Prime Minister's office in Ottawa and its new masters in Beijing. This isn't just about Canada. If this globalist roadmap is allowed to succeed there, do you think they won't try it here? This is a fight for the very soul of the West. We are going to name and shame the people responsible. We're going to follow the money, and we are going to expose the deep state alliance that is putting our entire continent at risk. Do you hear that deafening silence coming out of Ottawa tonight? That is the sound of a government selling its soul and its sovereignty behind closed doors while the Canadian people are left in the dark. We are pulling back the curtain on what can only be described as a deep state betrayal of the highest order. Mark Carney, the man the media mob loves to frame as the economic savior, is acting as nothing more than a high-priced broker for the Chinese Communist Party's infiltration of North America. Let's get to the facts that the radical left and the state-funded broadcasters won't touch with a 10-foot pole. Prime Minister Carney signed a secret memorandum of understanding MoU with Beijing on security and intelligence. Think about the insanity of that for a second. Why is it a secret? Why is Carney and his Minister of Public Safety refusing to show this document to the people's representatives in Parliament? The answer is as clear as day. You don't sign a security cooperation deal with a regime that you admitted was your greatest existential threat just months ago, unless you've decided to surrender. This isn't diplomacy. It's a controlled capitulation to a hostile foreign power. And look at the economic carnage this partnership is reaping. We are witnessing a textbook case of industrial dependency being forced upon a G7 nation. Canada, a land of infinite natural resources, is being relegated to a mere commodity farm for Beijing. They want Canada to ship out its raw minerals, its oil, and its food, only to import back high-tech Chinese junk, specifically these government-subsidized electric vehicles, EVs, that the United States has already flagged as massive national security risks. Make no mistake, these aren't just cars. They are smart surveillance tools on wheels, potentially packed with spying technology that reports directly back to the CCP. And while Carney paves the way for 49000 Chinese EVs to flood the Canadian market, what happens to the hardworking Canadian auto worker in Ontario? What happens to the steel workers? They get laid off. They get told their jobs are obsolete in the name of the Green Revolution. It is a disgrace. Billions of Canadian tax dollars, hard-earned money from families who can barely afford groceries, are being used to subsidize foreign manufacturers while domestic plants sit empty. Now, let's talk about the staggering hypocrisy of the woke elite. They lecture you about the climate emergency. They tell you that net zero is the only path forward, even if it means destroying your standard of living and sending energy prices through the roof. They want you to feel scared and panicked about the future so you won't question their power grabs. But while they force you into a smaller, poorer life, they are rolling out the red carpet for the world's largest polluter. They are selling out Canada's energy independence to a regime that is building coal plants at a record pace. It was never about the environment. It was always about control and redistribution of wealth from the middle class to the globalist elite. And it gets even more surreal. The CCP is now brazenly requesting parliamentary exchanges with the very Canadian MPs they have placed under sanctions. And what is the Carney government's response? Silence, weakness, cowardice. They aren't protecting their own lawmakers. They are rolling over. By cozying up to Beijing in this secretive, compromised manner, Canada is rapidly becoming the weakest link in the Five Eyes intelligence alliance. Do you think our intelligence agencies in the U.S. can trust a government in Ottawa that shares security MoUs with our primary global adversary? This puts American lives at risk. It puts the entire Western alliance at risk. This is the deep state playbook in action. They use draconian laws like the Online Harms Act to silence dissent. They create boogeymen to keep the population in a state of fear. When the economy craters because of their own radical policies, they blame global supply chains or misinformation. And now in 2026, their favorite scapegoat is back. They are desperately trying to blame every single failure in Canada, from the housing crisis to the failing auto sector, on Donald Trump. They are terrified of President Trump because he doesn't play their globalist games. He knows that a strong, sovereign Canada is a good neighbor, but a compromised pro-China Canada is a threat. While Carney and his liberal cronies are looking for ways to please Beijing, Donald Trump is looking for ways to protect the American worker and the American family. The contrast could not be more clear. Coming up, we're going to look at the massive retaliatory fire coming from Mar-a-Lago. President Trump is not going to let this betrayal go unanswered. He has a message for Ottawa, and it involves the Gordie Howe Bridge, the dairy industry, and the very survival of Canadian trade. You don't want to miss this. Now, listen to me very carefully, because while the radical left in Ottawa and their woke allies in Washington are busy sipping lattes and plotting the next net zero disaster, the real world is hitting back, and it's hitting back hard. You've heard the excuses from Mark Carney. You've seen the hidden MoUs. You've witnessed the slow motion surrender to Beijing. But there is one man who refuses to play their globalist games. There is one man who sees this betrayal for exactly what it is. And that man is President Donald J. Trump. Just hours ago, the president sent a shockwave across the border that has the liberal government in a total tailspin. In a Truth Social post that every Canadian and American needs to read, President Trump laid out the cold, hard truth about the decades of unfair treatment we have endured from our northern neighbor. He didn't mince words. He said, as everyone knows, the country of Canada has treated the United States very unfairly for decades. Now things are turning around for the U.S. And fast. And he put his finger right on the pulse of the latest globalist boondoggle, the Gordie Howe International Bridge. Now imagine this for a second. Canada is building a massive bridge between Ontario and Michigan. They want to own both sides. They want to control the most vital economic artery on the continent. And how was it built? President Trump exposed the stupidity of the Obama administration, which gave Canada a waiver so they didn't even have to use American steel. They took our market, they took our money, and they didn't even use our products. President Trump's message to Mark Carney was clear. The party is over. He stated, I will not allow this bridge to open until the United States is fully compensated for everything we have given them. And also, importantly, Canada treats the United States with the fairness and respect that we deserve. And he went further. He is demanding that the United States own at least one half of that bridge. Why should Canada collect all the astronomical revenue from a bridge that only exists because of the American consumer? It's a bold move, it's a strong move, and it's exactly what a president who puts America first does. But let's talk about the China factor. President Trump is on to Carney's little game. While Carney was over in Beijing playing nice with Chairman Xi, Trump was watching. He warned that Carney's deal with China will eat Canada alive. He said, we'll just get the leftovers. I don't think so. Do you see what's happening if Canada becomes a drop-off port for Chinese junk, subsidized EVs, spying technology, slave labor products? President Trump has a 100% tariff hammer ready to drop on every single Canadian good entering this country. He will not allow the CCP to use Canada as a backdoor to destroy the American worker. And it's not just about the big industries. It's about the disrespect. President Trump called out the fact that Ontario won't even put U.S. spirits and alcoholic beverages on their shelves. They charge our dairy farmers unacceptable tariffs, putting our families at financial risk. They take and they take and they give nothing back. But the president even took it to a cultural level, warning that if Canada keeps selling its soul to Beijing, the first thing China will do is terminate all ice hockey being played in Canada and permanently eliminate the Stanley Cup. Now, the media mob thinks that's a joke. They laugh. But ask yourself, is it really a stretch when you let a communist regime infiltrate your institutions, your economy, and your security? Do you think they stop there? No. They destroy your identity. This is the rupture that Mark Carney talked about at Davos. He stood up in front of the globalist elites and complained about American hegemony. He suggested that middle powers like Canada should diversify and look for alternatives to the United States. Well, Mark, President Trump heard you loud and clear. If you want to pivot to China, then you can deal with the consequences. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't enjoy the protection of the U.S. military and the access to the world's greatest market while you're signing secret security partnerships with our greatest adversary. The choice for Canada is now stark. They can follow Mark Carney down the road to net zero, poverty, digital surveillance, and Chinese dependency. Or they can return to the values that made North America great: freedom, sovereignty, and a real partnership based on mutual respect and America First principles. President Trump is standing in the breach. He is fighting for the American rancher, the Michigan steelworker, and the families who are tired of being cheated. And he's sending a message to the deep state in Ottawa. The era of taking advantage of the United States is over. Negotiations start immediately. The world is watching. The American people are waking up. And we will not let our sovereignty be traded away for a green lie or a secret deal with a communist regime. We are going to protect our borders, we are going to protect our industries, and we are going to make sure that the golden age of North America is built on the foundation of liberty, not the shackles of Beijing. Stay with us. We have more on this developing story. This is a fight we cannot afford to lose.